Chapter-8 Devotional Paths to the Divine. You may have seen people perform rituals of worship or singing bhajans, kirtans or qawwalis, or even repeating the name of God in silence, and noticed that some of them are moved to tears. Such intense devotions or love of God is the legacy of various kinds of bhakti and Sufi movements that have evolved since the 8th century. The idea of a supreme God. Before large kingdoms emerged, different groups of people worshipped their own gods and goddesses. As people were brought together through the growth of towns, trade, and empires, new ideas began to develop. The idea that all living things pass through countless cycles of birth and rebirth, performing good deeds and bad, came to be widely accepted. Similarly, the idea that all human beings are not equal even at birth gained ground during this period. The belief that social privileges came from birth in a noble family or a high caste was the subject of many learned texts. Many people were uneasy with such ideas and turned to the teachings of the Buddha or the Jainas, according to which it was possible to overcome social differences and break the cycle of rebirth through personal effort. Others felt attracted to the idea of a supreme God who could deliver humans from such bondage if approached with devotion or bhakti. This idea, advocated in the Bhagavad Gita, grew in popularity in the early centuries of the Common Era. Shiva, Vishnu, and Durga as supreme deities came to be worshipped through elaborate rituals. At the same time, gods and goddesses worshipped in different areas came to be identified with Shiva, Vishnu, or Durga. In the process, local myths and legends became a part of the Puranic stories, and methods of worship recommended in the Purans were introduced into the local cults. Eventually, the Purans also laid down that it was possible for devotees to receive the grace of God regardless of their caste status. The idea of bhakti became so popular that even Buddhists and Jainas adopted these beliefs. A new kind of bhakti in South India, Narayanas and Alvars. The 7th to 9th centuries saw the emergence of the new religious movement led by the Narayanas, saints devoted to Shiva, and Alvars, saints devoted to Vishnu, who came from all castes, including those considered untouchable like the Pulayar and the Panars. They were sharply critical of the Buddhists and Jainas and preached ardent love of Shiva or Vishnu as the path to salvation. They drew upon the ideals of love and heroism as found in the Sangam literature, the earliest example of Tamil literature composed during the early centuries of the Common Era, and blended them with the value of bhakti. The Narayanas and Alvars went from place to place composing exquisite poems in praise of the deities enshrined in the villages they visited and set them to music. Narayanas and Alvars. There were 60 Nayanas who belonged to different caste backgrounds such as potters, untouchable workers, peasants, hunters, soldiers, brahmans, and chiefs. The best known among them were Apar, Sambandar, Sundarar, and Manika Vashagar. There are two sets of compilation of their songs, Tevaram and Thiruvakkam. There were 12 Alvars who came from equally divergent backgrounds, the best known being Periyalvar, his daughter Andal, Tondara Dipodi, Alvar, and Namalvar. Their songs were compiled in the Divya Prabandham. Between the 10th and 12th centuries, the Chola and Pandya kings built elaborate temples around many of the shrines visited by the saint poets, strengthening the links between the Bhakti tradition and temple worship. This was also the time when their poems were compiled. Besides, hagiographies or religious biographies of the Alvars and Nayanas were also composed. Today we use these texts as sources for writing histories for the Bhakti tradition. The Devotee and the Lord. This is a composition of Manika Vashagar. Into my vile body of flesh you came, as though it were a temple of gold, and soothed me wholly and saved me. O Lord, O grace, O gem most pure, sorrow and birth and death and illusion, you took from me and set me free. O bliss, O light, I have taken refuge in you, and never can I be parted from you. Philosophy and Bhakti. Shankara, one of the most influential philosophers of India, was born in Kerala in the 8th century. He was an advocate of Advaita, or the doctrine of the oneness of the individual soul and the supreme God, which is the ultimate reality. He taught that Brahman, the only or ultimate reality, was formless and without any attributes. He considered the world around us to be an illusion or Maya, and preached renunciation of the word and adoption of the path of knowledge to understand the true nature of Brahman and attain salvation. Ramanuja, born in Tamil Nadu in the 11th century, was deeply influenced by the Alvars. According to him, the best means of attaining salvation was through intense devotion to Vishnu. Vishnu, in his grace, helps the devotee to attain the bliss of union with him. He propounded the doctrine of Visishtadvaita, or qualified oneness, in that the soul, even when united with the Supreme God, remained distinct. Ramanuja's doctrine greatly inspired the new strands of bhakti which developed in North India subsequently. Basavana's Virashaivism. We noted earlier the connection between the Tamil Bhakti movement and temple worship. This in turn led to a reaction that is best represented in the Virashaiva movement initiated by Basavana and his companions like Alama Prabhu and Akkam Mahadevi. This movement began in Karnataka in the mid-12th century. The Virashaivas argued strongly for the equality of all human beings and against Brahmanical ideas about caste and the treatment of women. They were also against all forms of rituals and idol worship. Virashaiva Vachanas. These are vachanas or saying attributed to Basavana. The rich will make temples for Shiva. What shall I, a poor man, do? My legs are pillars, the body the shrine, the head a cupola of gold. Listen, O Lord of the meeting rivers, things standing shall fall, but the moving ever shall stay. The saints of Maharashtra. From the 13th to the 17th centuries, Maharashtra saw a great number of saint poets whose songs in simple Marathi continue to inspire people. The most important among them were the Jnaneshwar, Gyaneshwar, Namdev, Eknath and Tukaram, as well as women like Sakkubai and the family of Chokhamela, who belonged to the untouchable Mahar caste. This regional tradition of Bhakti focused on the Vitthal, a form of Vishnu temple in Pandharpur, as well as on the notion of a personal God residing in the hearts of all people. These saint poets rejected all forms of ritualism, outward display of piety, and social differences based on birth. In fact, they even rejected the idea of renunciation and preferred to live with their families, earning their livelihood like any other person, while humbly serving fellow Hanuman being in need. A new humanist idea emerged as they insisted that bhakti lay in sharing others' pain. As the famous Gujarati saint Narsi Mehta said, they are Vaishnavas who understand the pain of others. Questioning the social order. This is an Abhang Marathi devotional hymn of Sant Tukaram. He was identified with the battered and the beaten, mark him as a saint, for God is with him. He holds every forsaken man close to his heart. He treats a slave as his own son. Says Tuka, I wouldn't be tired to repeat again, such a man is God in person. Here is an Abhang composed by Chokhamal's son. You made us low caste, why don't you face that fact, great Lord? Our whole life left over food to eat. You should be ashamed of this. You have eaten in our home. How can you deny it? Chokhal's son Karmamela asks, why did you give me life? Nath Panthis, Siddhas and Yogis. A number of religious groups that emerged during this period criticized the ritual and other aspects of conventional religion and the social order, using simple logical arguments. Among them were the Nathpanthis, Siddhacharas and Yogis. They advocated renunciation of the world. To them, the path to salvation lies in meditation on the formless ultimate reality and the realization of oneness with it. To achieve this, they advocated intense training of the mind and body through practices like yogasanas, breathing exercises and meditation. These groups became particularly popular among low castes. Their criticism of conventional religion created the ground for devotional religion to become a popular force in northern India. Islam and Sufism. The saints had much in common with the Sufis, so much so that it is believed that they adopted many ideas of each other. Sufis were Muslim mystics They rejected outward religiosity and emphasized love and devotion to God and compassion toward all fellow human beings. Islam propagated strict monotheism or submission to one God. In the 8th and 9th centuries, religious scholars developed different aspects of the holy law, Shariat, and theology of Islam. While the religion of the Islam gradually became more complex, Sufis provided it with an additional dimension that favored a more personal devotion to God. The Sufis often rejected the elaborate rituals and coded of behavior demanded by Muslim religious scholars. They sought union with God much as lover seeks his beloved with a disregard for the world. Like the saint poets, the Sufis too composed poems expressing their feelings, and a rich literature in prose including anecdotes and fables developed around them. Among the great Sufis of Central Asia were Ghazali, Rumi, and Sadi. Like the Nafranti, Siddhas, and Yogis, the Sufis too believed that the heart can be trained to look at the world in a different way. They developed elaborate methods of training using zikr, chanting of a name or sacred formula, contemplation, sama singing, raqs dancing, discussion of parables, breath control, etc. under the guidance of a master or peer. Thus emerged the silsilas, a spiritual genealogy of Sufi teachers, each following a slightly different method, tariqa of instruction and ritual practice. A large number of Sufis from Central Asia settled in Hindustan from the 11th century onward. This process was strengthened with the establishment of the Delhi Sultanate. When several major Sufi centers developed all over the subcontinent, the Chishti's silsila was among the most influential orders. It had a long line of teachers like Khwaja Muinuddin Chishti of Ajmer, Kutubuddin Bakhtiyar Kaki of Delhi, Baba Farid of Punjab, Khwaja Nizamuddin Auliya of Delhi, and Bandnawaz Gisudaraz of Gulbarg. The Sufi masters held their assemblies in their khanqah or hospices. Devotees of all descriptions, including members of the royalty and nobility and ordinary people, flocked to these khanqahs. They discussed spiritual matters, sought the blessings of the saints in solving their worldly problems, or simply attending the music and dance sessions. Often people attributed Sufi masters with miraculous powers that could relieve others of their illness and troubles. The tomb or dargah of a Sufi saint became a place of pilgrimage to which thousands of people of all faiths thronged, finding the Lord. Jalaluddin Rumi was a great 13th century Sufi poet from the Iran who wrote in Persian. Here is an excerpt from his work. He was not on the cross of the Christians. I went to the Hindu temples. In none of them was there any sign. He was not on the height or in the lowlands. I went to the Kaaba of Makkah. He was not there. I asked about him from Avicenna, the philosopher. He was beyond the range of Avicenna. Looked into my heart. In that his place I saw him. He was in no other place. New religious development in North India. The period after the 13th century saw a new wave of the Bhakti movement in North India. This was an age when Islam, Brahmanical Hinduism, Sufism, various strands of Bhakti, and the Nathpant, Siddhas, and Yogis influenced one another. We saw that new towns and kingdoms, chapter 2, 3, and 4 were emerging, and people were taking up new professions and finding new roles for themselves. Such people, especially craftspersons, peasants, and traders and laborers, thronged to listen to these new saints and spread their ideas. Some of them, like Kabir and Baba Guru Nanak, rejected all orthodox religions. Others, like Tulsidas and Surdas, accepted existing beliefs and practices but wanted to make these accessible to all. Tulsidas conceived of God in the form of Ram. Tulsidas' composition, the Ramcharitmanas, written in Awadhi, a language used in eastern Uttar Pradesh, is important both as an expression of his devotion and as a literary work. Surdas was an ardent devotee of Krishna. His compositions, compiled in the Sursagar, Sursaravali, and Sahitya Lahari, express his devotion. Also contemporary was Shankar Deva of Assam, late 15th century, who emphasized devotion to Vishnu and composed poems and plays in Assamese. He began to practice of setting up namgad or houses of recitation and prayer, a practice that continues to date. This tradition also included saints like Dadu Dayal Ravidas and Mirabai. Mirabai was a Rajput princess married into the royal family of Mewar in the 16th century. Mirabai became a disciple of Ravidas, a saint from a caste considered untouchable. She was devoted to Krishna and composed innumerable bhajans expressing her intense devotion. Her songs also openly challenged to norms of the upper castes and became popular with the masses in Rajasthan and Gujarat. A unique feature of most of the saints in that their work were composed in regional languages and could be sung. They became immensely popular and were handed down orally from generation to generation. Usually the poorest, most depraved communities and women transmitted these songs, often adding their own experiences. Thus the songs as we have them today are as much a creation of the saints as of generations of people who sang them. They have become a part of our living popular culture. Beyond the Rana's Palace. This is a song composed by Mirabai. Rana ji, I have left your norms of shame and false decorum of the princely life. I have left your town and at Rana. Why have you kept up enmity against me? Rana, you gave me a cup of poison. I drank it laughing. Rana, I will not be destroyed by you. And at Rana, why have you kept up enmity against me? A closer look, Kabir. Kabir, who probably lived in the 15th-16th centuries, was one of the most influential saints. He was brought up in a family of Muslim Julahas or weavers settled in or near the city of Banaras, Varanasi. We have little reliable information about his life. We get to know of his ideas from a vast collection of verses called Sakhis and Pads, said to have been composed by him and sung by wandering bhajan singers. Some of these were later connected and preserved in the Guru Ganesh, Guru Granth Sahib, Panchwani and Pijap. In search of the true Lord. Here is a composition of Kabir. O Allah, Ram present in all living beings, have mercy on your servants. O Lord, why bump your head on the ground? Why bath your body in water? You kill and you call yourself humble, but your vices over conceal. 20-40 times the Brahman keeps the Ekadasi fast while the Qazi observes the Ramzan. Tell me, why does he set aside the 11 months to seek spiritual fruit in the 12th? Hari dwells in the east, they say, and Allah resides in the west. Search for him in your heart, in the heart of your heart. This he dwells, Rahim Ran. Kabir's teachings were based on a complete, indeed vehement rejection of the major religious traditions. His teachings openly ridiculed all form of external worship of both Brahmanical Hinduism and Islam, the preeminence of the priestly classes and the caste system. The language of his poetry was a form of spoken Hindi widely understood by ordinary people. He also sometimes used cryptic language which is difficult to follow. Kabir believed in a formless supreme God and preached that the only path to salvation was through bhakti or devotion. Kabir drew his followers from among both Hindus and Muslims. A closer to Baba Guru Nanak. We know more about Baba Guru Nanak 1469 to 1539 than about Kabir, born at Talwandi, Nanakaha Sahib in Pakistan. He travelled widely before stabilizing a center at Kartarpur, Dera Baba Nanak on the river Ravi. A regular worship that consisted of the singing of his own hymns was established there for his followers, irrespective of their former creed, caste or gender. His followers ate together in the common kitchen langar. The sacred space thus created by Baba Guru Nanak was known as Dharmashal. It is now known as Gurudwara. Before his death in 1539, Baba Guru Nanak appointed one of his followers as the successor. His name was Lehna, but he came to be known as Guru Angad, signifying that he was a part of Baba Guru Nanak himself. Guru Angad compiled the compositions of Baba Guru Nanak, to which he added his own in a new script known as Gurumukhi. The three successors of Guru Angad also wrote under the name of Nanak, and all of their compositions were compiled by Guru Arjan in 1604. To this compilation were added the writings of other figures like Sheikh Farid, Sant Kabir, Bhagat Namdev and Guru Tegh Bahadur in 1706. This compilation was authenticated by Guru Tegh Bahadur's son and successors Guru Gobind Singh It is now known as Guru Granth Sahib, the holy scripture of the Sikh. The number of Baba Guru Nanak's followers increased through the 16th century under his successors. They belonged to a number of castes, but traders, agriculturists, artisans, and craftsmen predominated. This may have something to do with Baba Guru Nanak's insistence that his followers must be householders and should adopt productive and useful occupations. They were also expected to contribute to the general funds of the community of followers. By the beginning of the 17th century, the town of Ramdaspur, Amritsar, and development around the central Gurdwara called Harmandir Sahib Golden Temple. It was virtually self-governing, and modern historians refer to the early 17th century Sikh community as a state within the state. The Mughal Emperor Jahangir looked upon them as a potential threat, and he ordered the execution of Guru Arjan in 1606. The Sikh movement began to get politicized in the 17th century, a development which culminated in the institution of the Khalsa by Guru Gobind Singh in 1699. The community of the Sikhs, called the Khalsa Panth, became a political entity. The changing historical situation during the 16th and 17th centuries influenced the development of the Sikh movements. The ideas of Baba Guru Nanak had a huge impact on this development from the very beginning. He emphasized the importance of the worship of one God. He insisted that caste, creed, or gender was irrelevant for attaining liberation. His idea of liberation was not that of a state of inert bliss, but rather the pursuit of active life with a strong sense of social commitment. He himself used the terms Nam, Dam, and Isnan for the essence of his teaching, which actually meant right worship, welfare of others, and purity of conduct. His teachings are now remembered as Nam Japna, Kirt Karna, and Vand Chakna, which also underline the importance of right belief and worship, honest living, and helping others. Thus, Baba Guru Nanak's idea of equality had social and political implications. This might partly explain the difference between the histories of the followers of Baba Guru Nanak and the history of the followers of the other religious figures of the medieval centuries like Kabir, Ravidas, and Dadu, whose ideas were very similar to those of Baba Guru Nanak.